Hi guys, welcome. Well, that's so rude. As soon as I was getting ready to start a video, got a phone call. Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. It actually feels kind of weird saying welcome back because like now I've made a few videos, and so some of you guys are watching like not for the first time. So I want to take time to like thank you guys and to acknowledge you guys by saying welcome back. So I'm so glad you guys decided to tune in today. Today we are doing a March reading wrap up video. So this month by far has probably been my best reading month. I don't know what was going on. I was reading like a mad woman, and I also like read more on my Kindle this month. So I read a total of 10 books, and I am currently finishing 2 other books, which I won't finish because today is actually March 31st, but I won't finish them today, so that's why they're not included in this wrap up. They'll have to be included in my April wrap up. But to think if I would have finished those, I would have read 12 books this month is insane. Normally I'm like a 7-8 kind of person, so the fact that I fit in 2 more books was phenomenal to me. And I mean, it's not about the amount, it's obviously about just enjoying reading, but I gotta say I'm kind of proud of myself for doing 10 books this month. But without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into this video, and I'm gonna tell you guys all the books I read and what I thought about them. And I may share with you guys some books I am looking forward to reading in April. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Guys, so to start off with, I'm not doing this in any particular order. If you want to see like the exact order I read them in, you can actually check out my Goodreads account, which is going to be linked in the bio or linked in the description, so you guys can see like what order. And I also like put comments for some of the books if you guys want to see that, and feel free to add me as a friend, and I would love to see the books that you guys are reading too. But for the first book in this pile, I read Indigo Eyes by Maeve Hazel. I think that's how you pronounce it. You guys, I gave this book 4 stars. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was kind of in that like 3.75 to 4.25, and I just went with the 4 stars because it was like right in the middle. But this is a fake dating romance, and it was really good. It's not, I will say this book is not for everyone, which I think she actually says that like in like the author's note. She goes like, oh, this book is not for everyone. But it's about basically this girl, she is in love with plants. She has basically grown up with this tree in her grandmother's backyard, and the tree is forced to be removed. And so one of her friend's brother is actually trying to create this career called plant therapy. And Indigo, her name is not Indigo, but I cannot think of her name, just like kind of went out of my head. I don't know why. What the heck? Oh no, her name is Indigo. Y'all, can y'all tell I am already done for the day? Anyways, oh gosh, Indigo and Elias, they become somewhat friends, I guess. Indigo is a very like introvert. She doesn't really leave the house, and she starts basically trying to come out of her comfort zone. And so Elias and Indigo end up having a fake date, and with that she starts to get out of her comfort zone, and she also ends up like just coming out of her shell, and she meets new people, and she starts to really learn to stand up for herself. But there is a lot of trauma in this book too. I will say you guys should definitely look at the trigger warnings for this book. Elias has a little sister, and she's like the cutest little thing, and so she also plays a big role in this book. But without spoiling anything, I can't say anything else. I can just say read the book, but look at the trigger warnings. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was really good. Like I said, I rated it 4 stars. Next we have Twisted Love. So if you guys watch my 5-star reads video, this book was in there. You guys, Twisted Love I love this book so freaking much. Like, the whole Twisted series is really good, but Twisted Love, like, Alex and Ava just, like, they have me in a chokehold is really all I can say. They have me in a chokehold with their relationship. I love the brother's best friend. I love the, I guess, like, grumpy to sunshine, because Alex wasn't really a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I love that he'll burn the world for her. So everything about this book, like, all the tropes that this book included was some of my most loved tropes. So I think that's why I love this book. If you guys have not read this book or you do not know what it's about, just a little bit about it. Ava is Alex's best friend's sister, and so that's how you get the brother's best friend. And so her brother ends up having to go out of town or go, like, for a semester, because he's a medical student, and he asks Alex to basically watch over her and keep her safe while he's gone, because he won't be able to do it. And they end up forming a connection, and they don't really acknowledge the connection, but they finally do start to acknowledge it, and it's just a beautiful story. But Alex also has some demons, some dark things about himself that he's, like, trying to take care of, and so he's not just some grumpy guy. Like, he does have legitimate reasons to be grumpy, and he does have an ulterior motive as to why he was friends with the brother in the first place. But needless to say, it all comes full circle, and it's a very beautiful story. But it's also, like, a story with a lot of angst, a story with a lot of, like, passion. And yes, I like this 5 infinity stars. It's not even 5 stars, it's infinity stars. I could reread this book again. This was my first reread, and I, like, annotated for the first time for this book. And you can see all the tabs. Other books I've annotated do not have this many tabs in it, and I tabbed the heck out of this book. Like, I love this book. So I highly, 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 highly recommend you guys read Twisted Love if you have not already. But yeah, so that's the second book. Next, I read Before We Were Strangers, and I actually posted this review on my Bookstagram. So if you guys want to see that, my link to my Bookstagram will be in the description. Follow me on there. I'm pretty active on there every single day. So if you guys want, like, a more, like, daily interaction kind of thing, Bookstagram is definitely where you should follow. I said Bookstagram is Instagram, but that's where you guys should definitely follow me at. But Before We Were Strangers, I want to say I gave this one a 4 stars. I'm trying to remember my ratings, because, like, sometimes I don't remember what I read in the books. But yes, I want to say I gave this one either 3.5, 4 stars. This is a not a childhood friend. This is a second chance romance, and I did not think I was a second chance romance kind of person. I have read them in the past, but I've only read, like, a select few, and so I never, like, go looking for books like, oh, I want to read a second chance romance. But now I think I may be that kind of person that actually may look for books that have a second chance romance in them. This was so beautiful. It's about 2 people, a guy and a girl, and they are best friends in college. Like, they end up, like, basically always, I say basically a lot, but they end up hanging out a lot in college. They become best friends, and they actually start to date, and they have this really cute, like, relationship going on, this all-in relationship. And the guy, he's a photographer, and he ends up having to go out of town. He gets a job, like, right after graduation, and he ends up having to go overseas to another country, and that kind of takes a toll on their relationship, and they just pretty much end things. And we go, I think it's 10 years later, 10-15 years later. It's a pretty good chunk of time later, and we see them both where they're at now. They meet in a train station, but they actually don't get to talk. She's, like, on the train as it's already leaving, and that's when he notices her. But they end up meeting, I want to say they end up meeting again. I think I can't remember how they met again after that, but they end up meeting again, like, after they see each other in the train station. Oh, a website. She's a teacher, and so one of her students sees this website, and it's like a post, like, he posted a post basically saying, like, oh, if you, like, met in a train station, like, this is me, like, I would love to meet. Like, they have this website where like if you meet someone and you like never got to talk to them, like you can post like what their experience was, and if they're on there they can reach out and say like, oh, that was me. So yes, that's how they end up connecting again. It took me a minute to remember that, but they end up connecting like that again, and they catch up. Both of them have been married and they've both been divorced, so now they're in this season in their life where they're kind of free to do what they want. And so yes, like I said, it's a second chance romance, so they end up coming back together. But it's so beautiful. You just find out about like everything they both have been through, like through that time they were apart. And then it also, you get to see, because it goes from past to present, so you do get to see their relationship of how they were when they were in college. So it's not like you just, you know, get one chapter. Like, you actually get to see the detail of how their relationship was when they were in college. So I highly recommend that if second chance romance is your thing. And even if you haven't read second chance romance, I really think you should read that one. And next we have Lotus. Guys, this book, oh my gosh. So let me just say this. It took me a while to finish this book. I originally started this book in January, and I started on my Kindle, and I only read maybe like 2 or 3 chapters, and then I tried again in February. And March I was like, Jasmine, you're gonna finish this book, because it wasn't that the book was not good. The book was very good to me. It was such a slow burn though, and I love a good slow burn, but guys, this is a painful slow burn, and it's so slow. Like, do not like underestimate a slow burn until you've read this book. This book literally is the definition of a slow burn. And so it's a very like heartfelt and also kind of heartbreaking story, but it's one of those books where the heartbreak, like where the pain starts at the beginning and then you get the happy ending, versus like, you know how like with some books you start happy in the beginning and then you get the heartbreak at the end? No, this is the opposite. So this book is about Oliver, and gosh, I'm not remembering people's names. Sydney, that's her name. So you have Oliver and Sydney. They were childhood best friends. They lived next door to each other. They did everything together. You know, like when you like find your best friend and you make promises like, oh, you're gonna be the person I marry and stuff. That was them. They were always attached at the hip. Everyone knew them as like best friends when they were kids. Unfortunately though, when they were 8 years old, Oliver gets kidnapped, and he is missing for a little over 20 years, I believe. It was over 20 years, and he ends up coming back. Obviously everyone thought he was dead at this point. They did years of like searches for him and they never found him. And so he comes back, and this book is all about him just really getting back into life. And so he comes back to the house that he grew up in, and Sydney still lives in the house next door. So they end up reconnecting, and she is trying her best to just kind of help him get adjusted and trying to rebuild that friendship back up. It's not that there was no animosity between them two, but obviously you're trying to like relearn each other, and he didn't remember everything at first. So over the time he's been back, he starts to remember things. And yeah, they really come to this moment, and it's just so beautiful, where they just really notice how much they love each other and how much they feel for each other. But yes, like I said, I definitely recommend this book, but just please be aware that it is a slow burn and it is not a fast moving book. So if you want something that you're gonna feel all the feels immediately, this is not the book. You have to be prepared and to like read through and before you get your happy endings. But like I said, and there's a really big twist to this book too. I will say that the twist was bizarre as to who like kidnapped Oliver. So I really enjoyed that part too. So I want to say I gave this 4 stars as well. I had a lot of 4 or 5 star reads this month. I don't think I had any 3 star reads. So yes, I highly recommend this one. Next we have Full Tilt. This was my sad book for the month. I try to really be like cautious of like how I plan out my sad books, because my heart can only take so much pain, and this was my book for the month. This was like, Jasmine, when you were ready to cry, this is the book you're gonna read. So this was my book, and if you guys don't know, this is actually part of a duology, so it's Full Tilt and then All In. I have not read All In yet. I am gonna have to wait a few months before I read that one, because this story was heartbreaking. I was sobbing my eyes out. I was an absolute wreck. And it's one of those books where you already know it's gonna happen. The author doesn't hide that like this is gonna happen, like you know it's gonna happen, but it's like when it happens, it's just like it is so painful. But yes, Casey and Jonah, that's what, I remember two names. Did I just glance at the back? Yes. But anyways, Casey and Jonah. Casey is basically this girl. She is in this rock band. She is living the life. She is already on edge. She is trying her best to like stay afloat. She is just an emotional disaster. She is really just crashing slowly, like she is on the brink of just losing it all mentally. And she ends up coming to this town for a show, and Jonah is their limo driver, and she ends up getting into a little bit of trouble at her show where she ends up having to leave early, and Jonah drives her, but she's so massively drunk that he decides to take her to his place because he cannot get to her place. Like no one's there to open the door, so he takes her to his place, and she ends up waking up on his couch and not knowing if she had sex with this guy because she's just so used to random hookups after her shows. And so with that, they ended up kind of forming this friendship, but it was already a lot of tension there in the beginning, just because of how they met. And Jonah was this person that like he stuck to his routine, and Casey was just kind of interrupting his routine. But he decides to kind of help her get back to like a healthy mental state, just pretty much get to a place where she can function on her own and she's not living for other people. And so it's such a beautiful story, and I don't want to spoil anything bad or I don't want to spoil any of the sad parts. But yes, these two are freaking adorable. And the way the book ended though, it really makes me a little nervous for the second book, because if I think what happens, I'm gonna be upset actually, because I can't deal with that kind of betrayal. I'm sorry, but it's betrayal in my head. So we'll find out when I do read the book. But yes, I highly recommend this one as well. Obviously I highly recommend all of these because I love them. But yes, if you want to cry, like if you want to sob, this is the book. This is one of those books. Next, for the last physical book, and everything else is on my Kindle, I read The Atlas 6. This was actually my first book of the month, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. This is actually a lot different from normal books that I read, but I actually really loved it. I cannot wait to read The Atlas Paradox. This is kind of like it's fantasy, and then the setting is kind of like an educational or academic fantasy. And so it's about 6 characters. I think it's 6 of them. Yes, 6 of like the most smartest, like powerful people with magic. Like they really have learned how to use their magic, and they are kind of the best of the best currently in the world. And so they are all they get invited to this, how would you say it, this I don't even know if this society, yeah, that's what you could call it. You can call it society. They get invited to this society, and only 5 of them can make it, and so they have to figure out how they're going to get rid of one of them. But it also, like, obviously they're all working together because they have to there's things they have to do within like the time span that they're in this like initiation period, and then at the end is when they have to decide who to get rid of. And so the only thing I will say that I did not really like about this book, and why it was not a 5-star read for me, was that the romance, there's not really any romance in here. There's a little bit, like one of the characters, she's just, her lifestyle is very much like explicit, and she's just kind of there and just enjoying her time. And then there's a little bit of romance between two characters possibly, but overall this book is more so all about the magic, all about the betrayal and things like that. So I feel like if this had just a little bit of more romance, if we got a little bit more romance with the characters, it would have definitely been a 5-star read for me. But it did not have the romance that I hoped it would have. But overall the plot was really good. It kept me on my toes. I wanted to know, you know, what would happen if like who would they choose to end, to basically get rid of. And they don't know how they have to get rid of the person. They just know that one person has to leave and go home, but they found out that is not the case. So I highly recommend that one, but just be aware that it is not romance heavy. So if you're looking for something romance heavy, I would not recommend it. I still recommend it for like the fantasy and the plot line, but if you want something romance, I would not. Next, I didn't realize I like stacked all these books on top of my Kindle. So let's grab, so that was, I have 4 books I read on my Kindle. One of them is an ARC, which surprisingly the release day of the ARC is well, the release day of the book is today, March 31st. And so we will talk about that one, but you guys should definitely check it out. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, let's go. So the first 2 books I read were a part of the Monster trilogy, which one of them were my 5-star reads, and it is by Rena Kent. So we have Blood of My Monster and Lies of My Monster. I will show you guys what the covers look like. So this is the first one. So it's Blood of My Monster by Rena Kent, and it's part of the Monster trilogy. This book was really like, I think I read this book in 48 hours. I love Rena Kent's books. Like, if you guys watched my 5-star reads video, I had 2 books by her in that stack, and one of them were actually a part of this trilogy. But yes, the first book starts off as a military romance. You have the main female character, which Alexander is what she goes by, but she ends up pretending to be a man so she could enter the military because her family was basically taken away from her, and she is on a quest to like figure out what happened, and her best way for protection is to join the military. But she's obviously, as a woman, she's not really as capable to do the things that men are able to do, and some of the people kind of find that out, and they kind of use that to their advantage, but they think she's just a weak man, not a weak woman. But she ends up basically being able to transfer to this other area of like this other, I guess you would call it, transfer to this other unit within the military, and that is where she meets Kirill. And Kirill is basically he's this angry guy, like angry leader, but he's also a very loyal leader. He has a very loyal team with him, and Kirill is basically helping her get stronger, and he assumes that she's a girl, but he never really acknowledges because he doesn't know if she's like transgender or like why she is pretending to be a guy. So he kind of just lets it do what it do. But yes, they end up going through this mission, and one of the missions they end up having to, her and Kirill end up getting stuck together, and they have to pretend to be husband and wife because obviously he knows that she's a girl. And with while they do that, they kind of form a connection, but it's not a connection that either one of them are obviously gonna acknowledge. So that is how book 1 ends. And then book 2, Lies of My Monster, once they get back, Kirill's father is like the mafia king or whatever. So Kirill is actually a mafia prince, and his father is about to die, and so his father has always wanted him to take the throne. His father never wanted him to be in the military, and so he begs him to come back, and in a way he actually kind of forces him to come back. And so Kirill decides to go back, and a lot of his people from the military decide to come back with him. And Alexander, we call her she because she actually goes by she, but she decides to go with him as well. She's the only person that wasn't with him in the beginning that decides to come back, and she ends up being one of his bodyguards. And he obviously already knows that she's a girl, and so now they actually start to kind of act on their relationship. And the whole time she's there, she's trying to figure out, keep in mind, the whole time she's with these people, she's still trying to figure out what happened to her parents. So none of this is just off of her like wanting to do this. Like, her end goal is always to still find out what happened to her parents, and she gets closer than she thinks she does, and Kirill finds out things. In the end, it's such a cliffhanger. She's looking for her brother. She's married Kirill, and they are, oh gosh, guys, the third book comes out in like 4 days, and I am so ready, because the cliffhanger that this book ended on has me in a chokehold. Like, and I can't say anything without ruining it. Like, I cannot say anything about the cliffhanger because it's gonna ruin it all. So yes, I highly recommend you guys read this one. You do have to read, it cannot be read as a standalone, so you will have to read the first one. And I think I gave the first one 4 stars. The second one was a 5-star for me. Read My Dog Romeo by Parker S. Huntington and LJ Sheehan. And so if you guys know, Darling Venom was one of my favorite books, and that's by Parker S. Huntington, and I love her writing. I love how her stories flow. I've never read anything by LJ Sheehan, but after reading this, I definitely have books by her on my wish list that I want to get. So this book is, some of the tropes are marriage of convenience, grumpy to sunshine, forced proximity, all of the good stuff, all of the toxic stuff. But it is really good. So you have Romeo, and then you have I cannot think of her name. Her name's not Juliet, I can tell you that. We are going to Dallas, that's her name. Her name is the state of the city. I'm like his friends in the book that never remembers her name. But yes, Dallas and Romeo are forced to get married. She was arranged to marry someone else, but an incident happens and he has to take her hand in marriage. And Romeo's on his way to try to get his father's company, and he only can do that if he gets married. So it actually works out for him, even though he never wanted to be married. He also does not want to fulfill the duties of a husband as far as starting a family and things like that. But Dallas really is this person, her all-time dream was to always become a mother. And so they clashed there, but they also clashed because they were forced into, well, she was forced into the marriage. He was the one who kind of forced it on her. But yeah, the book is all about them becoming, just learning to be married and learning to kind of coexist with each other, because they kind of can't stand each other. But with that, they end up really becoming really good friends, and they actually become really happy. So it is a happy ever after ending, which I love. So Romeo is literally so sweet. He is just, he just needed time. But I gave that book a 4.5 stars, I believe, is what I gave that book, which I still think I stand with that rating. That book was really good. The only thing I wish it was longer, because with the happy ever after ending, it was like the book focused so much on her getting that ending, and it's like, man, I wish I could have seen more of that ending. I just really wish I could have like known more about it. And then lastly, I read Coast to Coast by Callie Miel, and guys, that book was so good. Let me get the cover page for you guys, which, let's scroll. I forget that like Kindle just like automatically picks up where you left off. So since I got an ARC, I don't know if I have the cover. It may not. Yeah, I don't get the cover on this one because it was an ARC. But yes, so this was an ARC for this book. I may can show you guys, like, oh, there we go. Don't know why I didn't show it first. Okay, this is Coast to Coast, and guys, this book was so good. I love that book. I literally read it in, I think, 2 days. I read it when I was out of town, and it was, if you guys like Icebreaker, I say this book is your book. It is a hockey romance, and it's the guy, he is very much the golden retriever guy. He really cares for the girl, the female main character. He is helping her find herself because she's on the path to like trying to figure out who she wants to be. She just finished her first year in college, and her first year did not go as she planned. Her and her ex broke up. Her and her best friend had a really bad falling out, and so now she decides to come stay with her brother in her hometown, and he is getting ready to leave the house, so she lets him stay in his room, and that is where she meets that's where she meets the guy. And yes, they decide to go, well, he has a hockey camp in Canada, and so she decides to go with him, and during that time she's supposed to spend time finding herself, and she wants to explore the new country. And they have the most beautiful story there. It is a one bed trope, which that's always fun. We love one bed tropes, but yeah, I gave that a 4 stars, and it was just a really good it was a really good read, and like I actually like laughed out loud like at a lot of parts of the book. Like there were certain parts that were like actually like really funny, and it also is a lot of spice in it, so if you guys love spice, I highly recommend that book as well. Like I said, it definitely gives me Icebreaker vibes, so if you really liked Icebreaker, as far as like the main male character, I highly recommend it. The female, they are a lot different. The female character in this book, she's just really, like I said, she's on a path to finding herself. She's not really stuck on doing one thing right now. She just declared her major, and so she's just really in a path of like, she's like, I'm just here to have a good time, and I'm here to figure out what I want to do with my life. So with that though, that is all the books I read for March this month, March 2023. Why did I say March this month? But yes, those are all the books I read for this month. I will do another video probably talking about like my April like TBR, because I do have a few books and I have a few arcs to read that during the month, so I'll probably do a separate video about that, and let me know if you guys want to see my April TBR. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried to keep it short. I didn't want to ramble too long, and I didn't want to ruin the content of the books for you guys. But like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed my month as far as the books I've read. I had all 4 5 stars, which we love that. We love books that we actually enjoy. And so I hope that you guys pick up some of these, and if you have read any of them, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.